conversation about AI or the impact of AI is getting more and more polarized every day. There are views on both sides. Some think it's going to be the biggest revolution, some think it's going to be the biggest threat. My speaker on the show today is someone who's very clear, I think, in his view, and someone I'm very excited to speak to. Yuval Noah Harari is a historian. He's an author, one of the foremost thinkers of our time, and is talking about his new book, Nexus. Yuval, thank you so much for speaking with us on NDTV. Absolute pleasure.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
So I did a small introduction of who you are, but here's something I like to do.
Yes.
How would you describe yourself for our viewers?
I'm a historian, but my view of history is that history is not the study of the past. History is the study of change, of how things change, and history is more relevant than ever before because we are in the midst of the biggest change ever in human history, the AI revolution. AI is really different from everything we've seen before in history because it's the first technology which is not a tool, it is an agent. Now, every previous human invention, when people invented the stone knife or the wheel or the printing press or the atom bomb, this was inventing another tool that makes us more powerful. Now we can do this, now we can do this. AI is not a tool. It is itself an agent, which means it can make decisions by itself, it can invent new ideas by itself. An atom bomb could not decide what to bomb. An AI weapon can by itself decide what to bomb, who to kill. An atom bomb could not invent the next generation of bombs. Like the atom bomb could not invent the hydrogen bomb. AI can invent new things, including the next generation of AI. So we are now creating something which might be potentially more intelligent than us, that might escape our control and start making decisions about us and changing the world in a way that we don't understand. You know, it's already beginning in so many different ways, like you apply to a bank to get a loan. Previously, it was only human beings who could decide whether to give you a loan or not. Now, increasingly in many banks, it is an AI deciding whether to give you a loan or not. And this will happen more and more in universities, in government offices. People sometimes have this science fiction idea that the danger of AI is the big robot rebellion, like one day the AIs will try to take over the world. It's unlikely to happen. The real threat is that we will have millions and billions of AIs, these new super intelligent agents everywhere as AI bureaucrats in the banks, in the hospitals, in the government offices, in the militaries, making more and more decisions about us, changing the world with new ideas that we cannot understand, and we will lose control over our lives and over the future.
Just to take that point forward, and I'll pick up the example on banks, and then we can see what the argument for is. Some would argue that the bureaucracy, as you describe it, and in the context of banks, is currently inefficient. If you have the right parameters, then this AI decides who to give a loan on for the right reasons.
Yes, absolutely.
You have less bad debt. You don't have a possibly corrupt banker giving loans to a company for a kickback or a relative, and you cut that out. So, I mean, what about that side of the argument?
I'm not saying that AI is bad. I'm just saying it's a very big change. There are many arguments in favor of AI. It could revolutionize banking in a positive way. It can revolutionize healthcare. With millions of AI doctors, so many people can't get a doctor. So if you have millions of new AI doctors, it could create the best healthcare system in history. So even before we get to the judgment, is it good, is it bad, just to understand the magnitude of the change, that for thousands of years, we lived inside a culture created by humans. All the ideas, from music and songs, all the way to religions and economic systems, everything came from the human mind. Now, increasingly, we will live in a world in which more and more music, but also more and more religious ideas, more and more economic models will come from an alien intelligence.
Why do you call it alien?
Because it thinks, it makes decisions in a completely different way than human beings. It's not organic. It's more different from us than chimpanzees or dogs are different from us. We are still all mammals. We share the same emotions. We share the same basic attitude to the world. Like we work in cycles. Like dogs and chimpanzees and cows and humans, we are organic. We have day and night cycles of sometimes we are active, sometimes we need to rest. AIs are inorganic. They don't care if it's day or night. They never need to rest. One of the things that happen in every system that AIs take over is that humans are forced to move faster and faster and faster because the AI never rests. You know, even in finance, we talk about banks. So Wall Street is open, the market in Wall Street, only Mondays to Fridays, 9:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. In the evening, at night, during the weekend, during festivals like Christmas, it's shut. Because also the bankers, they want to sleep. They want to have time with their family. Now AI is taking over finance, and AI works 365 days a year, 24 hours. So if you want to stay in the game, you have to move faster and faster. It happens to journalists, it happens to politicians, and if you force an organic being to be active all the time, you know what happens? It collapses and dies. This is what is happening around the world. AI is accelerating everything, and this is pushing humans to the brink of collapse. Now, there is immense positive potential there if we know how to control the AIs. But the problem is that the AIs are agents, and they are learning how to manipulate us. I mean, I give you one small example. When OpenAI, the leading company in the AI field, developed GPT-4 2 years ago, they wanted to test what can this AI do. So they gave GPT-4 the task of solving CAPTCHA puzzles. CAPTCHA puzzles are these visual puzzles, like you want to access your bank.
Yeah.
So to make sure that you're a human and not a bot, you have to identify a string of words or to find a cat or something to show that you're human. Now, the GPT-4 could not solve the CAPTCHA puzzle, but the researchers gave it access to a web page, TaskRabbit, where you can hire people to do things for you online. So GPT-4 tried to hire a human worker online to solve the CAPTCHA puzzle for it. Now, the human got suspicious. The human wrote on the site, why do you need somebody to solve you CAPTCHA puzzles? Are you a robot? It asked the critical question, are you a robot? And GPT-4 answered, no, I'm not a robot. I have a vision impairment, which makes it difficult for me to see the visual puzzle, the CAPTCHA, so this is why I need your help. And the human believed it.
So the question is, who taught GPT-4 to lie?
Nobody. They gave it a goal. They told the GPT-4, your goal is to solve this puzzle, do anything needed in order to solve it. And GPT-4, on its own initiative, first of all decided to lie to the human. It understood, if I tell the human the truth, it will not solve the CAPTCHA for me. I need to solve the CAPTCHA, I won't tell him the truth. Secondly, it invented a very effective lie. Again, this is the two abilities of AI, to make decisions, I will lie, and to invent new ideas. Nobody told GPT-4 what would be an effective lie.
Yeah.
Of all the things it could say, saying that I have a vision impairment, I'm a human being with a vision impairment, this was a perfect lie.
Yeah.
So this is a very, very small example. What happens if this happens on a very big scale, as the AIs control the banks, the armies? You know, maybe the next big financial crisis is caused by AIs, and we can't understand. Like, you go to the Prime Minister, you go to the President of the US, and you say, you have this big financial crisis, but nobody understands what is happening because it's the decisions of the AIs, and it's too complicated for human beings to understand them.
So what this tells us is that deceit is no longer just a human trait.
No.
It is something that AI can pick up. And I suppose then the question is, who puts the leash? Because AI is not going into Pandora's box. It's there.
It's out completely.
So who puts the leash on? I was seeing an interview with Jeff Bezos, who talks about how right now he's spending all of his time at Amazon looking at the utility of AI. Your biggest tech leaders in the world are obsessing about how to use AI. So who puts the leash on?
Ideally, it should be governments, but with the new US administration, this is unlikely to happen. The US is the leading power in the AI race, and in the Trump administration, it's very clear that it is not going to put any leash, to have any regulations. So this is a big danger for the whole world. We could see a repeat of what happened in the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century. In the 19th century, a few countries like Britain and France and later Japan and the US, they led the Industrial Revolution. This gave them the power to conquer and exploit and dominate the entire world for more than a century. So this is how a small country like Britain could dominate and exploit such a huge area like India for such a long time. How could they do it? Because they led the Industrial Revolution. They had the technology of steamships and machine guns and trains. AI is much more powerful than steamships and machine guns. The difference between a country that leads the AI revolution and a country that stays behind will be much, much, much bigger than the difference between Britain and, say, the Indian kingdoms in the 19th century.
So this brings me to my next question. From an Indian perspective, there is no way this country or we can be out of this race. There is no way we can afford to. And every nation in the world is going to think like that.
Yes.
So there is no intent to put on a leash. Everyone wants to be in the arms race. This is the latest weapon.
When everybody is just running faster and faster, we know for certain who will win and who will lose. AI will win, humanity will lose. Because this is the most basic principle in imperialism is divide and rule. And now the competition is not really between US and China or US and India. It's between humanity and the AIs. And if humanity is divided, this ensures that AI will win, because every time you approach a dangerous junction, you say, oh, if we develop this AI, if we don't put in safety and guardrails, this can be very dangerous. But if we slow down and the Chinese don't slow down, or the Americans don't slow down, or the Indians don't slow down, they will win. So we know it's dangerous, but we have to do it. And you ask the Chinese, they say the same thing. We know it's dangerous, but we can't let the Americans win. So we have to do it. And everybody is running faster and faster. And as a result, everybody loses.
So what would your appeal be, Yuval, as someone who is obviously thinking about the big picture for humanity as a whole? Today you're talking about this in the context of your book.
Yeah, we need to solve the problem of human trust before we solve the problem of AI. Like what we have is it's a paradox. Like you ask the people who lead the AI revolution, why are you moving so fast and so dangerously? And they say, we are aware of the danger, but we can't trust the other humans, so we must move faster. And then you ask them, but do you think you'll be able to trust the super intelligent AIs you're developing, these aliens? And they say, yes, we think we can trust them. This is insane. We have thousands of years of experience with humans. We know that humans sometimes lie. We know that humans sometimes deceive. But we've experience with humans, and we also know how to build trust with them. AI is completely new. We have no idea how it might develop. This is such a huge gamble. Now, if we can't build trust with the humans, I don't think there is any chance we'll be able to build trust with the AIs. So I think we should, this is a tendency of humanity to focus all the attention on solving the wrong problem, and after you solve the problem, you realize, we solved the wrong problem. The real problem of the world right now is not how to develop AI as fast as possible, it's how to rebuild trust between humans. 10 years ago, the world was in much better shape in terms of human trust. It was the most peaceful era in human history. There were wars and conflicts. I come from the Middle East, from Israel, I know this perfectly well. But you look, for instance, at military budgets. For most of history, the military budget was more than 50% of the budget of every government on earth. In the early 21st century, it went down to just 7% of the budget went to the military, compared to 10% to healthcare. Why? Because governments felt very safe. The biggest taboo of the international system was that you cannot invade and conquer another country just because you're stronger. There are lots of civil wars, but the basic taboo was kept, and this is why countries felt safe. Now it's being broken in more and more places. The clearest example is the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is imperialism of the old style that people have forgot even what it means. People say, it's like the American invasion of Iraq. It's not. The Americans never tried to annex Iraq to the United States. It was unthinkable that the US will annex Iraq to the United States. Now in Ukraine, every piece of territory conquered by the Russian army is annexed by the Russian state. This is imperialism of a kind we have not seen since 1945. And this example is spreading. Countries around the world, in the Middle East, in Venezuela, in other places, if Putin can do it, we can also do that. Then defense budgets skyrocket.
Of course.
So we need to realize if we destroy the international order, what we get is chaos. And in a state of chaos, if we have an AI race, the winner will be AI, absolutely.
Now, so obviously, because you talked about what's happening in the world, Ukraine, Russia, definitely what's happening in the Middle East as well. You're also a historian. How do you see this conflict ending and the huge toll it has already taken on human lives? And of course, another very polarizing debate on what's happening between Israel and Gaza right now.
Well, in Russia and Ukraine, this is very simple. Most conflicts in the world are complex. This is a very simple conflict. The Ukrainians don't want anything from the Russians. They have no demands on any piece of territory of Russia. It's very, very simple that Russia has just no right to invade and conquer parts of another country. It has legitimate security concerns. These concerns should be addressed. But it should be very clear that a country cannot invade and conquer another country just because it's stronger. It should be as simple as that. And all the countries in the world should be very clear on that point with the Russians. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is much more complex. It's an ethnic conflict going on for generations. But there too, the peace would come from the realization that both peoples, Israelis and Palestinians, have a right to exist. And have a right to exist in dignity and security and prosperity. There are 7 million Palestinians, more than 7 million. They are born there. They have nowhere else to go. They have a right to exist in the land between the Mediterranean and Jordan River in security and prosperity. And in the same land between the Mediterranean and Jordan River, there are also more than 7 million Jews. Most of them were born there. They have nowhere else to go. They also have a right to exist there in security and prosperity. The problem is that people see only half of reality. Like they only see the Jews and their rights, or they only see the Palestinians and their rights. And it's the human mind is capable of holding two ideas at the same time. Amazing fact about the human mind. We can hold two ideas at the same time. When people, both in the Middle East, but also in other parts of the world, make this accomplishment of understanding, yes, there is the Jewish people, it has a right to exist, there is the Palestinian people, it has a right, then we can have peace. We can, of course, need to negotiate, it's not easy, where the border will pass, and what you do about water, and what you do about this and that, but the deep root of the conflict is that both sides simply refuse to acknowledge the right of existence of the other side.
You know, I know I have a little time left in this interview, so I'm going to squeeze some bits in. We've talked about really big issues.
Yeah.
Let's bring it down to individuals. And you talk about communication in this book. You talk about how a lot of information we're now receiving as individuals is just junk.
Yeah, most information is junk.
And you are obviously on a diet. I believe you don't have a smartphone.
I have a smartphone, but
you barely look at it.
But it's not on me. I just, there are certain services like healthcare, like in the airport, that now you must have a smartphone. But I try to use the smartphone instead of being used by it. It's like with food. We need some food, but too much and too much junk food is not healthy for us. So information is the food of the mind. We need some good quality information, but too much information is not good for us. Like, we need time to digest physical food. We also need time to digest mental food. If you constantly just put more in, you never have time to digest, to think, to meditate, to detoxify your mind from all the anger and hatred and greed and fear, which is, this is the junk information that is constantly flooding us. So we need an information diet. Sometimes we even need an information fast, like take a period, it can be a couple of hours or days, some people maybe even weeks, when you don't consume any new information. You just give the mind time to digest and detoxify.
So do you ever find yourself doom scrolling before going to bed? Or you never do that?
I very much try not to do so. Again, this is basically hacking the human brain. How do you hack a computer? You find the weakest spots in its code. It's the same way how to hack the human brain. You find the weakest spots in our brain, in our mind, and this is what social media algorithms do. Like, they look for your weakness and they use your weakness against you. And our weaknesses usually are, again, it's hate, it's fear, it's greed. If there is something that makes you very greedy, oh, I want this, then the algorithms will find this out about you and then starts flooding you with this. If there is something you hate, like a group of people you hate, or a politician you hate, or somebody you hate, the algorithms will experiment, will show you this, will show you that, and then when they find, oh, you hate this, they give you more and more and more of that. So this is how they kind of hack humans and flood us with junk information.
Yeah. One of the things I know you do to detox is Vipassana. It's had a big impact on you. Tell us a bit about that, and for our audiences here in India, how Indian culture and Vipassana has had a huge role for you.
Yeah, so I've been meditating Vipassana for 24 years now. I do 2 hours, more or less, every day, and I come almost every year to India to do a long meditation retreat of 1 month or 2 months of Vipassana. And for me, the key question in meditation is, what is reality? The mind is constantly producing fictional stories, imaginations, and they come between us and reality. Humans almost never encounter reality. We only encounter the fictions produced by our minds or by the minds of somebody else, or increasingly the fictions produced by AIs. And we don't react to the reality. We react to the fictions, to the images. Meditation is all about learning to tell the difference. What is a fiction and what is reality? Like, when you close your eyes and sit down, at least for me, the question that keeps repeating is, what is really happening right now? It starts with the simplest exercise of just feeling your breath coming in and out of your nostrils. Oh, now the breath is coming in, now the breath is going out. This is reality. The breath is really coming in, the breath is really going out. You don't try to create or control anything, you just observe reality. And the amazing thing is, most people can do it for maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and some image comes, some fiction comes, some memory comes, and hijacks our attention. And then for 5 minutes, you roll in some fantasy until you realize, hey, I'm supposed to be watching the reality. You come back to breath. Again, some fantasy comes. And this was like maybe the first thing I understood when I started meditating 24 years ago, is that I have no control of my mind, and I spent almost my entire life engaged with fantasies and not with reality. And meditation is just an exercise for the mind how to let go of the fantasies and get in touch with the reality. People sometimes think that meditation is escape from reality. You have all these things in politics, in business, in your personal life, and you say, oh, I just sit in the corner and close my eyes, I disconnect from reality. I think it's the opposite, that we spend most of our lives engaged with fantasies. We have no idea what the reality is, and at least for 2 hours a day, I train my mind to get in touch with reality. If I cannot observe the reality of my breath going in and out of my nostrils because of all these fantasies, what hope do I have of understanding the reality of the political situation in the Middle East or of the economic crisis or whatever? It will only be fantasy.